Welcome back to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. And now let's start with the first story. It's called Point of Failure. About 4 years ago, I was hired as an IT consultant. The job description said I'd spend half my time answering phones, and the other half modernizing processes and improving internal communication. I had done first-line phone support before and actually enjoyed it. It's a great way to learn how things really work, what users actually need, and which processes actually make sense. A week into the job, I pulled my manager aside and told him there were some serious security issues that needed fixing immediately. His response was that I should stay quiet until I'd been there 6 months and knew what I was talking about. I also pointed out that the department had a lot of single points of failure. For example, only one person knew how to fix our old systems from the late 80s. Same answer, stay quiet. Fine, I stayed quiet. But these issues were glaringly obvious and incredibly dangerous. Everyone had the exact same admin password, and it hadn't been changed in over a decade. Former employees had this password, and 4 months later, after I had done nothing but answer phones, we found out the hard way that some hackers had it too. The entire company shut down. All the stores went offline. HQ was in chaos, and we were scrambling to get anything even close to a working system back up. Very expensive outside experts were brought in, and I had to hide a smirk when they told management that the vulnerabilities used in the attack were exactly the ones I'd flagged months earlier. Even better, their proposed fixes were almost word for word what I had suggested back then. It took a few very stressful months to get the company even barely functional again. Then I got called in and fired because the manager didn't think I fit in. With all the stress finally catching up to me, I crashed hard and couldn't finish the projects I'd been working on. Those projects got reassigned to already overworked colleagues, who also burnt out and/or quit, including that one person who knew all the old systems. With that, the entire department collapsed. By my estimate, not following my advice had already cost the company around $20 million in lost revenue and consultant fees. And then, about 2 years later, I got a call from a recruiter. Are you willing to travel to get a bunch of international stores running again after a ransomware attack? It's not this company, is it? Yes. Is that a problem? Oh, it's definitely a problem. Just not my problem. And you can tell the manager that. Then I hung up, did a little online digging, and found out that by that point, ignoring my suggestions had cost the company about 10 years worth of net profit. The next story is called No Phones. A new policy was introduced at my workplace. No personal phones during work hours. They had to be on silent, out of sight and not touched until break time. So I followed the rules exactly. Before every shift I turned my phone off, locked it in my locker and went about my day. This went on for a few days, until my manager pulled me aside, looking very annoyed, and asked why I hadn't answered her call. She said she'd needed to check something urgently with me. I told her I was just following the phone policy. My phone was put away, like we'd been told to do. She didn't like that answer. She said I should have used judgment and answered if it was from her. But I wasn't about to risk getting written up for breaking a rule she'd just finished enforcing. After that, the no phones policy suddenly went very quiet. No more lectures, no more reminders. And I'm pretty sure I wasn't the only one who let a few of her calls go straight to voicemail that week. The third story is called Holiday Entitlement. About 30 years ago, when I was around 20, I worked for a small software company. It wasn't a great place. The software wasn't great either, mostly because they'd hire trainees and have them do the development, without a senior developer checking their work first. As you can imagine, the app had problems. Every other month a memo would go out, asking all programmers to come in over the weekend. There was no overtime pay, but we could take the same amount of time off later with pay. Time in lieu. I never really took proper holidays, but I would sometimes take the occasional sick day instead. One month my manager called me in. There were problems with the software that needed urgent fixing, and since it was near the end of the year, he said he was talking to anyone who'd had too much sick leave and was taking away some of their holiday entitlement. After deducting my sick days from my holiday allowance, I had about 3 days left. He said the aim was to stop people from taking holiday they were entitled to, so we'd have more work hours available to fix the software. I explained that I had no plans to take any holiday and was happy to work those days, plus the extra weekends, as I often did, but he insisted. So I asked him how many holiday days he was taking and how many days in lieu I was owed. When we added it up, I had 3 days holiday left, plus about 7 days in lieu. I decided to book them all. That meant they went from having their lead developer in every day to having to give me 2 weeks off. Then came the twist. He refused to let me take the time off. Not only that, he said they'd also take away the time in lieu days I'd earned. I told him that if they didn't stick to their own rules, I'd never work overtime again. His answer? That's just the way it has to be. The directors weren't happy that their plan had backfired, so they sent out a new memo. We'll be open until 8 PM on weekdays and 8 AM to 8 PM on weekends. If anyone is willing to work more hours, clock in and out with Craig. If we meet our deadline, there may be a reward for you, based on how many extra hours you worked. My boss asked if I'd be coming in. I said no. When he asked why, I reminded him that I'd said if they took away my days, I'd never work time in lieu again. He tried to tempt me by saying it would be time in lieu plus a bonus, but the memo didn't say how much the bonus was, and it was only a maybe, depending on whether we met the deadline. Too many conditions, so I declined. Plenty of people still worked extra hours. One guy did an extra 60 hours in a week. They met the deadline, and the bonus was revealed. For every extra hour worked, each employee received a lottery ticket. At the time, they cost £1 each. The guy in charge of clocking hours worked 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. He came over to gloat about how many tickets he had, saying, potentially they've given me millions. I told him, not only have they paid you £1 an hour for overtime, less than I made as a teenager stacking shelves, but they didn't even let you choose what to spend your money on. One person won £10. In the end, I was the only one who stuck to the requirements being forced on me. Everyone else let them take their days away and didn't claim the time in lieu they'd earned. I was also the only one who didn't get ripped off. The next story is called Ain't No Ticket. I used to work IT support at a mid-sized company that thought it was a Fortune 500. We were understaffed, underpaid, and expected to be psychic. People would call or corner us in the hallway saying things like, "Hey, my printer's acting weird, can you swing by?" While we were juggling 5 tickets and trying not to lose our minds. Our manager, a guy named Curtis who had never touched a server in his life, brought in some consultant who told him we needed more structure. So Curtis implemented a new policy. No work gets done unless there's a formal ticket. No exceptions. At first we were like, okay, whatever. More paperwork. But at least it protects us. Then Curtis took it further. He said if we did any task not in a ticket, even if it was 5 seconds to plug something in, we'd get a write-up. He called it discipline for procedural drift. Fine, message received. The very next week, the VP of sales, big name, big ego, storms into the IT office yelling that his laptop won't connect to Wi-Fi and he has a Zoom call in 10 minutes. I look up and ask, "Did you put in a ticket?" He goes, "No, I don't have time for that. Just come fix it." I smile. "Sorry, we are not allowed to do anything without a ticket. New policy." He scoffs and storms out. 2 minutes later, we get a ticket. Urgent. VP cannot connect to Wi-Fi. Fix ASAP. But here's the fun part. The system had a rule. Tickets came in first come, first served. Unless they were escalated by Curtis. Which this one wasn't. so I tagged the ticket and slotted it behind 6 password resets, 2 printer jobs, and one guy asking how to insert a picture in PowerPoint. Meanwhile, the VP is pacing like he's waiting for a kidney transplant. 15 minutes go by. He calls Curtis. Curtis calls me. You need to go help him right now. I say, absolutely. Can you go into the system and escalate the ticket? Long pause. You know I can't do that without a director level override. Exactly, I say. 45 minutes later, the VP has to call into a Zoom meeting from his phone. He sounds like he's standing inside a fish tank. After the meeting, he comes stomping back in, furious. I point to the open ticket queue. We are happy to help, I say, just waiting for it to rise to the top. The next day, Curtis quietly changed the policy. Tickets are still required, but urgent issues may be addressed immediately at IT's discretion. We kept the printout of that original policy on the office fridge for months. The last story is called Paper Piles. Back in the days before computers, everything was documented with paper. There was no email, no electronic memos, nothing. Everything was typed or handwritten. I was the office manager for a contractor. I was also the payroll department, accounts payable and receivable, accounting and HR departments. The owner's desk was always in a mess. Papers were scattered everywhere. Nobody had any idea what color the top of his desk was. He managed to work like that for years, until the day he snapped. One afternoon I was waiting for him to sign a stack of checks. He was interrupted by an urgent phone call and couldn't find the contract that needed his immediate attention. He stood up and used his arm to swoop every piece of paper from the desk to the floor in front of his desk. It was like watching a ticker tape parade in slow motion. I don't remember ever seeing him so angry before. Then he yelled, "Nothing goes on my desk until I clean up that mess on the floor." Okay, funny man? We had 80 employees at the time who were paid weekly. Remember, this was before computers. We didn't allow signature stamps on checks. All checks and legal documents required his original signature. I hated to do it, but orders were orders. I tossed all paychecks, company checks, contracts, phone messages, bids and contracts on the top of the pile of papers on the floor in front of his desk. I have to give him credit, because it only took him 2 weeks for his stacks of paper to be in neat, organized piles on his desk, arranged around his desk calendar. Then he said my desk should look as organized as his. I told him to buzz off, because my chaos was organized inside my head. And if he really wanted it cleaned off, he needed to stop giving me so much work to do. I multitasked before it was a thing, and organizing my desk wasn't included. Thanks for watching the video to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. Also, if you want to support me further, check out the channel membership or Patreon. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.